Hello again, Maverick traders, and welcome back. This is Ankit from Maverick Currencies, and this is a market recap for Monday, the February 27th. Let's take a quick deep dive into the markets, and most importantly, take a look at the price action today and talk about our outlook for upcoming 24 hours. So it was a very mild day in the equity markets. Remember, last week we had seen a nice drop in the equities, so we started off with a little bit of a bounce in the markets. But if you take a look at the percentage change, it was not really a big percentage change mover for the day. We had a mild gains for the S&P and the World Stock Index. Crypto had a very small little pullback there. Gold was slightly up and oil was down. As you can see, if you take a look at the price action in the equity markets, we did actually reverse some of the gains that we've seen in the equity. So every time you start to see rallies being sold, this is where it's just telling you that the gravity is a little bit more towards the downside. We are continue to aim further to where the previous low was. So every rally, it seems to be a good little shorting opportunity. Right now, this is kind of stuck in the slow middle of these three moving averages. We are right at the 50, below the 20, and still above the 200. So we will continue to see some sort of struggle in the markets here, but it seems like eventually the markets is heading lower, and all the momentum that we had kind of built up seems to be fading away, and that has a lot to do with what the bond market is telling us and what the yields are doing. Now, taking a look at the World Stock Index, you can see that it's showing a little bit more weakness here. So overall, it seems like the markets are kind of losing the momentum across the board. Now, lastly, the crypto markets, and you can see that in the past month and a half, like this market hasn't really gone anywhere. We have seen some nice bounces and some sell-offs, but eventually, if you're looking for a trend, this is not really in a trend. This is more in the sideways range. So let's take a look at the percentage change today and then see where the big movement was. Let's start with the cryptocurrencies. You can see that the Litecoin is continue to be the underperformer. Remember, the Litecoin actually was an outperformer for the most part of December and January. So you're seeing a bit of a change there. Now, looking at the main cryptocurrencies that we pay attention to, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they are slightly down. So they're again moving in a smaller range. They're not aggressively bullish, but they're not aggressively bearish. Now, looking at the currency market, as you can see that we, aside from the British pound, we had a very mild day. Depending on what currency you're trading, the yen was very in a small little range here. The dollar pulled back a little bit, and the Aussie and the Kiwi and the CAD. Look at that. The whole growth currency block is not really doing well, and you can see the Kiwi actually taking a charge there. So again, this kind of falls in line with what we are seeing in the markets. I mean, we're seeing growth currencies continue to struggle, and we are seeing this European currencies actually do well. Last week, some of these currencies did well, and again, if you take a look at some of the chart setups, they are kind of sitting on this upper end of that range. Could we get a breakout? We'll still have to see, but for the shorter term, getting some love over there. Now, taking a look at between the dollar and the yen, you can see a day like today, there was not a whole lot of negative correlation there. The yen was weaker, but then the dollar actually did pull back. But remember, dollar was sitting at a +3 last week, so this is a mild pullback compared to what we've seen in last week's price action. So if we take a look at the price action in the equity markets, looking at a -1 as far as the outlook goes, and every time, again, I see these rallies being sold, this is just telling me that this market is, in the shorter term, heading lower, and that's not a good sign, especially if you're trying to be in bull in the markets. Now, let's take a look at the schedule. Now, in the schedule, we had the durable goods order news this morning, but again, what is it telling us? The economic numbers actually are not so bad. The durable goods order, that was actually strong. And the month-over-month was down more than expected, but the core was higher than expected. So it didn't really had any big impact on the dollar or on the markets. It seems to be kind of working out with what the overall trend is, which is again strong the dollar and bearish the markets. Now going to tomorrow, we have the Canadian GDP. We'll see if this, again, usually we get a big move when we see a surprise. So if there's a surprise, we'll probably see a bigger move in CAD. But overall, CAD seems to be really trading in a very small range here. But now taking a look at some more data coming out tomorrow, we have the Richmond Manufacturing Index. Would that have a big impact on the dollar? I really doubt so. I think right now markets are really focused on what the Fed's going to do. And until then, we probably see this kind of go back and forth in a smaller range, but mostly buying pullbacks that we have seen so far in the past 2-3 weeks. Every pullback in the dollar is being bought out. I'm definitely more excited for this Aussie CPI number that's supposed to come out tomorrow night. Especially if you're taking a look at the Aussie pairs, this is the one to pay attention to. The CPI numbers can still move the currency, and Aussie being relatively weak right now is the one that we'll be paying attention to. So let's do a quick currency analysis, take a look at what the velocity score is telling us, and then based on that, we can look at our trades. Now, looking at the velocity score, you can see the cryptocurrencies are kind of right in the middle here. Like I said, cryptocurrencies are not extremely bullish, but they're not really extremely bearish either. So this is where let's focus on what's really moving. The yen continues to be in this negative score here. Again, we talked about it in the currency room. Bank of Japan has a new governor, and there was a lot of hopes that he will come in and maybe changing the stance from the last governor, and maybe they'll be changing their policy. But again, he reiterated, but everything stays the same. So the yen actually falls. Now, if you take a look at relative strength, I mean, we have the relative strength going to euro and the pound, but a lot of them are sitting at a -1. So remember, the big moves happen, when you look at +2 and the -2s. Small moves +1 with a -1. So Swiss franc was slightly positive, but again, this is where the movement is. But this is the currency basket we need to pay attention to, especially do we get a breakout? Maybe then that's where we're going to get a bigger move. But right now, like I said, they're in the upper end of the range. So let's just quickly take a deep dive into the charts here and take a look at these setups. Now, looking at the yields, you can see that this is the reason why we are seeing what we're seeing in the markets. Again, the yields continue to rise. We are at the highest level since November. Remember the downfall here that really caused the equity markets to rally, the dollar to fall. You can see that that's kind of changed, and we are back at those highs. So at this point, if you look at the bond market, TLT, you can see that they're actually heading lower. So these are all the things that are kind of going against the markets and going for the US dollar. So even though the US dollar was a little bit on the weaker side, but if we take a look at the daily trend, this is still in an uptrend. We are above the 20, the 50. Remember, all this time, everything was kind of bearish for the for the US dollar. Now, this is where we might need to just look for these pullbacks as a buying opportunity. Whenever you see a pullback happening, maybe that's a time to kind of sit out. But overall, you can see that pullbacks were bought out. As long as we are above the 20 to 50-day moving average, we have a positive momentum going. Now, let's kind of focus on yen, because yen is the one that's actually looking very weak. Look at a 4-hour chart. We are heading lower. 12-hour chart, daily chart, doesn't matter where you look. We are sitting at the low of the candle. So right now, the outlook looks kind of bearish for the yen. So again, this is kind of comes back to the outlook here. And right now on a weekly chart as well, as you can see, we are right at this support here. So meaning that if we break that, we can actually open a little bit more further to the downside. So I do like yen on a further downside. Now, let's take a look at currencies that are actually doing well. So euro. So euro is doing well. And I want to start with the weekly chart so you kind of get a perspective of where the euro is. As you can see, that euro is in this wide high base pattern on a daily chart. So we are in the upper end of the range. You can see how many times we kind of come above this range and then it's fallen back. So is this a trap, or is this something that you want to buy? So that's important. All the shorter term charts are pointing out to the upside. So does that make you a lot more bullish? Absolutely. But I'm still a bit wary of where the daily chart is, because it's right at this time, right at this area where these reversals are taking place. So would I rather wait for a little buying opportunity as it goes up? Again, it comes back to your outlook. Whenever I see a range bound condition, I try to not stick my neck out for breakouts. I'd rather be a seller around the resistance and a buyer around the support. But this could potentially be a breakout. And if that's the case, then I think euro would, a lot of these euro pairs actually looks good here. Now, same thing goes with the pound. If you look at the daily chart, you'll notice that we are right at this resistance point. So can we then now run into this previous area? And we absolutely can, but we just need that confirmation, or is this the right signal that's telling us that it's ready to break out? Because we don't want to be getting into those, fake breakouts, because we need to get that confirmation. So a lot of the momentum is looking strong here, but I would love to see that confirmation. But if that trend kind of stands here, you can see how this pullback was bought out. We are sitting at the highest area here. I'd rather buy in on pullbacks, especially if we have a direction in place. Then those buying on pullbacks comes a great opportunity. Now let's see what the currencies are not doing so well. Now let's take a look at the Kiwi. Well, if you look at Kiwi, this is not where the money's going. Remember, we're always trying to figure out where the money inflow and the outflow is, and we are not seeing that in the Kiwi. So Kiwi goes in a negative list, and so is the Aussie. Getting a little bit boost in the shorter term, but if we take a look at the daily chart, all of these things are heading lower. So I do like, at this point, Kiwi looks better short to me than the Aussie, but they're both in the same basket. Now, lastly, the CAD. If you look at CAD, this has been an interesting price action because, we definitely have come off from this extreme negativity that we had right here. But right now we are more in this neutral zone. And each time when it looks like it wants to break out, it pulls back. And then each time you want to sell, it rallies. So again, this is a very typical price action in a range-bound markets. And if I take a look at the daily chart, you can see that we're still in this range. It definitely has the potential. But I want to get a clear signal where it's breaking out. You can see that this time it did break out, then it just fell right back. So that's one of the things that kind of discourages you to go for some directional plays whenever you see a price action like that. So like I said, CAD is not an extreme bearish for me, but you just have to be very careful on buying it. I've noticed that a lot of times we just see the reversal in the morning. At the US market open, you can see a lot of times, just like here as well, we see these little reversals that happen, and then those end up reversing overnight. So just be careful on shorting the CAD, but you also got to watch out for where you go long in this the Canadian dollar. So timing is everything. So let's take a look at some of the pairings that we would need to take a look at based on relative strength weakness. Now, Euro Kiwi. Look at that. This is where the direction is. Let's start with the daily chart. Everything is pointing out to the upside. At this point right now, we are above the 20, the 50, and the next level of resistance is the 175. So this definitely looks like a good, decent pair that's on a run. And as long as it stays in a run, that we actually want to continue pursuing that. So I do like this. What time frame would I pick it on? Well, we can take a look at on a 4-hour chart. Right now, I do like some of the higher time frames. That's where we're getting a decent moves. So everything right now, every little price action you look at, every time frame, it looks like it's going on the upside. Now, same thing, pound against the Kiwi. Let's take a look at that. And again, same thing. It's trending. It's trending in the short term. Look at the hourly chart, 4-hour chart. Again, this is the currency that's currently on the run. So same thing. Once we establish the direction, then we need to establish the strategy. And the strategy will be to buy it on the pullbacks. And if you were very convinced on the breakout, then we can also look at the breakouts as well. Like I said, whenever I see things that are mildly bullish and mildly bearish, I'd rather go with buying in the pullbacks within the direction that's just moving. Same case can be made. Let's take a look at Euro Pound just so we can determine which one is stronger and which one is weaker. Now, looking at this chart, it looks like Euro is a bit on the lagging side compared to the Pound. So, if you're trying to decide, I think Pound looks a little bit better compared to the Euro. But again, always pay attention to this pairing so you can determine which currency is actually doing better. What about Swiss franc? I'm not really as keen on Swiss franc because that's not the currency that's really extreme bullish or bearish. Right now, this is staying in this little big range here. If you're, again, looking for things that are moving, Pound, Euro seems to be a better play compared to the other Swiss franc. But remember, we still have this dollar in a contender here, and let's take a look at Euro USD and Pound USD. So if you go on a Euro USD, so you can see that shorter term Euro is gaining. And let's take a look at the pound. Shorter term is gaining. So again, always pair these up. Right now, it looks pretty clear on what's moving. And I still like Aussie on to sell on rallies, Kiwi to sell on rallies. I mean, right now, Kiwi looks much weaker. We can confirm that by taking a look at the Aussie Kiwi. You can see the Aussie Kiwi is reversing in the shorter term. So a little bit more weakness there. So I like this the pound Kiwi, the Euro Kiwi, and even let's say look at the Kiwi US dollar. And that's another pair that if you take a look at this on a 4-hour chart, nice little bear rally. We have kind of broken that support. Look at the support that has been put in place. So right now, we love the fact that it broke lower, had a little bear rally, and is staying below it. Daily chart, still pointing at the same thing. And remember, look at the rally that we have seen in the Kiwi here. So I won't be surprised if the Kiwi dollar in the next few days attempts to actually move lower. So the direction is clear. The timing is where every trader is different. Everyone's holding period is different. And make sure you're using the right strategy that would tackle the market condition and the overall direction. So I do like I said, rallies are being sold, so I'm still saying bearish. Dollars in a pullback, but again, still remains bullish. So don't get fooled by some of these pullbacks and rallies that you see. Stick with the overall direction. And as always, trade less and focus on that currency in play. And if the currency is the euro and the pound, then that's what we'll be focusing on. And then let's say tomorrow the focus gone into the dollar, well, that's what we'll be focusing on. So always use the analogy of what's moving and making sure you're staying with what's moving. Thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll see you in the next update. Cheers.